This is the iPhone Air. While this might just seem like another iPhone launch for Apple, the Air was one of the biggest steps forward for Apple in over the last several years, in my opinion. And honestly, here's why I think that. You see, there's a reason why they did not call this the iPhone 17 Air. It's simply called iPhone Air. And that's because it's a new phone, first of its kind for Apple. And to be honest, it's been a long time since Apple truly innovated and made something new and not just a slightly tweaked version of a previous device. Now, if you go back to Apple's product line history though, this isn't the first time they tried to make an ultra slim device.
The iPod Nano is 80% smaller.
iPad Air is just 7.5 millimeters thin. iPhone 5 is the thinnest, lightest iPhone we've ever built.
But in typical Apple fashion, they're kind of late to the party. Brands like Samsung and others have already been making insanely thin phones for a few years now, and they've even tapped into the foldable device market, which I think Apple will also get into with these foldable devices. But I personally think that the Air was probably just like their first step forward in that direction. And honestly, it might have been a design experiment and a test to see how thin they can actually make one of their phones. Before we get into the review and to set the stage, I just want to say that I do believe that the iPhone Air was a large step forward for Apple, and honestly, one of the most exciting things that they've done in a while. But aside from the innovation, how does this phone perform in the real world? Apple is labeling this phone as the thinnest iPhone ever, which is just funny because they say ever for all their new features, but it truly is really thin. I think you really have to hold it in person to get an idea of, one, how thin it is, but how different it feels from their Pro series. So this is the iPhone Pro Max, and the difference is significant. Like, this just feels kind of like a brick compared to the iPhone Air, and the weight obviously is different. And this is something that shocked me as soon as I took it out the box, because it's not only thin, but it looks really good. Like, I personally think the iPhone Air is one of Apple's best looking devices they've ever made. And it honestly just, I don't know, it just feels premium. I'm kind of digging the shiny bezel with the frosted and kind of like cream back here. This is the gold color. It also obviously comes in 3 other colorways. When I compare the iPhone 17 to the Air, just real quick, I like the design better of the iPhone Air. But this is not a 17 Air comparison video. But as far as the hardware and overall feel goes, the difference is significant, especially if you're used to using a Pro for some time. Apple did a great job at making this phone feel premium, and it's reminding me a little of when they first launched the iPhone X back in 2017 with the rounded edges. I prefer the more flat bezel, but they did a really nice job on this one. And the most notable design feature, obviously, is the rear plateau that they've now added in the back. Obviously, to pull off this slim design, they had to put some of the internals in this little plateau. Now, the screen size of the iPhone Air is 6.5 inches, which puts it right in the middle between the iPhone Pro Max and the iPhone Pro. So this is kind of the 3 sizes you have now. You have largest, middle, and the smallest screen size. But the iPhone 17 Air is the middle child, basically. It's right in the middle in terms of screen size. But I have to say, the 17 Air, this screen size, the 6.5, feels just right. So if you're like me and you felt like the Pro was always just a little too small and the Max was always just a touch too big, this iPhone Air might be for you in terms of screen size. Aside from it not being one of the Pro devices, it does share some Pro features like the 120 Hz display and a peak brightness of 3000 nits on the screen. And it's so cool that we have devices that small that can operate with a display like that. It also has the action button that was released, and I personally don't really use it that much, but it's a nice to have, especially when shooting photos. Speaking of photos, let's talk about the camera. Now, the iPhone Air only has one camera on the back, which is the 48 megapixel Fusion camera. This is a bit of a downside, but understandable that they couldn't fit all 3 cameras like the Pros due to the ultra slim design and just kind of where it fits in their product line. However, it does still have the new 18 megapixel front camera, which is a huge plus considering the people who will buy this phone pretty much are gonna be using it in everyday scenarios. One thing I tested was deciding how limited I felt by only having one camera lens, going through my daily life or other projects that I got going on. I've had an iPhone Pro for a few years now, but sometimes it's true when they say less is more. All right, so we're out in the city, just kind of testing the iPhone Air and seeing what the camera experience is like. So let's go take some photos. Okay, I find myself using the 2X all the time. The 1 just looks a little too wide. This is a sick photo though. Okay, so although I think the camera quality is really good on the iPhone Air, it is super limiting having only one lens coming from like a Pro, because on the camera app you have 1X and then 2X, but the 1X feels too far and then 2X is not enough telephoto. Like, let me show you. So we're at this ledge here. We got 1X and then we go 2X. You get some more punch in. Pretty nice framing. But like, you kind of, I don't know, you're just kind of limited, you know? You just can't really do too much. I guess you can do some digital zoom, you know? But obviously you're gonna lose major quality. But I guess if you're just documenting life, it's not that big of a deal if you're just trying to capture a moment. But if you're trying to nail a certain shot and you want more reach, you're gonna struggle a little bit with this guy. Then we're going video mode to get the video quality. So the 18 megapixel front-facing camera is significantly improved over the 12, as you can see. The quality is kind of insane for a front face. Like I said, it would be nice to have the ultra wide and telephoto on this, like on the Pro series. But honestly, if you're someone who just primarily is documenting everyday moments, shooting a few videos and a few photos, and you don't plan on trying to create like super professional media, or you're not one like a content creator looking to get all the bells and whistles for your videos, this one main camera is more than enough. Now, with any new innovation or release by Apple, it's not going to be perfect. Now, the iPhone Air is no different, and it has some downsides to consider. One thing I will say is the battery dies pretty quickly on this compared to the Pro. I mean, that's kind of to be expected with how thin it is, but if you're one of those people that don't mind carrying like a MagSafe charger with you or some sort of portable device for charging, you're probably straight. But if you're one of those people that charge once overnight and you want to be able to use your phone all day long, you're gonna probably have a problem with this one. It just does not last all day with moderate usage, like watching videos, scrolling social media, and then taking photos or videos. So you're probably gonna find yourself needing a power bank all the time with the iPhone Air. But if that's not really a huge issue for you, then it's a great device. So if having a phone that can last all day with heavy usage is important to you, I'd take a look at the Pro models. And especially if you're one of those people that are always using their phone at 1% battery, you know who you are if you're watching this, you probably need the bigger battery in the Pros. But to be honest, I think one of the biggest downsides for me is the price point actually of the iPhone Air. At a starting price point of $1,000, it's only $100 away from the iPhone 17 Pro, which is kind of wild because for just $100 more, you get a lot more phone and a lot more features for the money. I would have loved to see the Air at like a $900 starting point, and if they're gonna keep the $1,000 starting point, maybe upping the storage internally for it to make it more appealing versus needing the features of the Pro. So pretty much, unless the super slim design and a slightly bigger screen is a must-have for you, The 17 Pro is a much better investment if you want straight up value and how much you can actually do with a phone. At the end of the day, I think the iPhone Air is an awesome release from Apple. It's kind of a stake in the ground by adding an ultra slim device into their lineup. Sure, it's not perfect, and I'm sure more things will come up in my testing, but that's kind of the beauty of tech and innovation. It's always about chasing, the one perfect device, when in reality we know that it really doesn't exist, because consumer needs shift every year. What matters is pushing things forward, and honestly, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So whenever a brand takes the risk to kind of try something new, I'm here for it. That's a wrap. All right, let me take my phones out of my pockets. 2 phones. All right, that's a cut.